Alright, hello YouTube, this is I. So this week I'm going to show you how I made the Dolus Ludifico kick and snare. Okay, so let's start with the kick. Here is the tracks that I got from Ionei Heckenberg. Actually, I'll color code this so it's easier for you to follow. So these orange tracks are the Beta 52, and these blue tracks are the AT, and these are the AT at the wires. And let's make them green. Okay, so now it's easier to follow things on the mixer because you can't really see stuff that well. Anyway, so let's listen first how things sound with just the Beta 52s and the AT unders. Let's bypass all the processing. Okay. And that is how it sounds. Really exciting, yay. Not really. So this is how they sound individually, so not that exciting. But when we turn on the kick processing, we get... Okay, now we're talking. We have a very, very aggressive kick sound. And so, first, here's the chain that I used. But to make it more exciting, let's try to do that ourselves. So, let's add a track, make it kick 2. And let's route all these to the same kick 2 bus. Alright, so I'll make another video where I show what I actually used on these. Okay, so let's try to make it ourselves. So, first that I added is an EQ. You can use any EQ you want, but I'll use this one because it has a nice graphical interface so you can see what's happening. So, let's first turn it on. And we can see that it is shooting over by 6 dB. But because the balance is okay in the tracks, let's just turn the input of the track down by 6 dB. It's still shooting 0.7 dB over, but don't mind that. Okay, so let's use the peak hold. Okay, so here we can see the graph that we don't really need these below whatever 50. This is like 40 Hertz maybe. So let's just high pass that. Alright, then we can hear that we have this frequency somewhere around here. It's either this or then it's this. So let's first try to make it go away with this one. Or it's definitely this one. So now what we'll try to do is that we'll just change the mode so that we actually have control over the cue. Then let's fine tune it so that we are at the exact frequency which is around here. And then we just turn it down by maybe 6 dB. Okay, and then we want to get rid of that cardboard, which is kind of funny because it's a cardboard box. So I'm guessing it's this frequency right here. So we want to get rid of that. Okay, sounds cool. Before and after. Okay, now if you want to sound more metal, just bring up the high shelf just a bit. Okay, as we can see, you need to bring it up quite a bit. I brought it up by 10 dB and now it sounds fairly metal. So basically, if you would want, this is basically your sound now. Personally, I find that snap, it's fairly, how do I say, maybe annoying. So what we'll do is that we'll use an L1. And then what we want to do is that we cut out that snap because this has a characteristic that when you compress enough, attack will be more rounder, which is what we want. As we can hear, it's much more rounder on the attack now. And at least on my opinion, a bit more pleasant. So let's bring it up just a bit. Okay, so now that's done. Next is that I'm going to add a max bass here. And what we'll do with the max bass is that we will search the frequency that we want. So somewhere between 90 and 105 Hertz, depending what you want. Okay, the 100 sounds okay. And then what we do is that we bring up that max bass so that it actually gets more body. Something like that. And then what we do is that we add, I personally like to use a soft clipper, but if you don't have a soft clipper at your disposal, you can just use a limiter if you want. And without the soft clipper, okay, so what we now have is a fairly aggressive sounding soft clipped kick. So basically what you would only need is just the EQ and the max bass and the limiter. So let's try to use the L1 instead. Yeah, that would also work. So it's totally up to your preference what to use. Personally, I found this chain really good. But then in addition, what I added to chain was that I added a transient designer to add a bit more attack and sustain. Then a Kramer tape just to ease up on that SPL. And then I used an EQ that cut out that nasty frequency at around 360 Hertz. And then just to do minor shaping. So let's hear how that sounds. So this is more like a rock thing, and this is more like a metal thing. So up to you what to use. Basically that is how I made the cardboard boxes to sound like this. Okay, so then let's move on to the snares. Alright, so here I have the snare track. Alright, so in addition to just the group, I also have two snare stands, and they are both reverbs. The other one is like a room that I recorded myself, and the other one is a default settings on the IR Live. So let's hear how these sound without the processing. So these are the same, but I also added these to action. So they are nothing special. I understood that Ionei just had like snare wires or something on bottom of the cardboard box. As we can see, the chain is really simple. So let's try to check how we ended up with the sound. And before. And with the reverbs. And as you can hear, there's some really odd clicking. So what I did was that I added a fade out on the master channel, or you can just route all these to a bus and then do it there, but I just did it on the master channel, so let's listen. So there is no clicking sound like you can hear. I'll use actually these same two snare channels, and let's make another group channel. So name this snare 2. And let's hide the kick channel and route all these to that snare 2 track. So we'll try to do the same thing. So let's begin. Same problem. Shooting over. Alright. So we'll add an EQ. And let's first check what we have. So as we can hear, if you have ever mic'd up a snare, they usually actually don't have much stuff below 200 Hz. So let's use just a high pass filter first and see how close we can get it to sound like a snare. Okay, that's close enough. So it was 100 Hertz that we landed up at. Then we can hear that there is something around here, I think, that sounds really resonant. So let's try, I think it was DGL2 that's really sharp when you boost it. Yes. So let's try that and try to get rid of that nasty sounding thing, whatever is there. Okay, so basically this is the resonance of the snare. So let's cut just that frequency down. Doesn't make much of a difference now, but it will when you start to do processing. Let's try if we can find anything else. So we are 325. So now you have to decide. This seems to be like a okay resonance sound, but if you decide you want to keep it, you can do that later. Okay, and then let's see if we can cut some of that mid-range to make it a bit more, I don't know, sweeter. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's try the SPL Transient Designer here to increase the attack. Don't worry, it will sound bad now, but it will sound better when we then saturate it next with the Kramer tape. Alright, so let's try then to saturate it with the Kramer tape. And let's just try actually the presets. So drums, maybe the snare. Let's just turn the noise off. Okay, now we can hear that there is something that's really ugly sounding. So let's try to find it with the EQ. It's like this, how would I call it? It's like a basketball sound. I think it's this frequency. Yeah, much better. So then we do the classic clipper again. We can actually use the same settings, so just. Okay, and at least to my taste, the sustain is a bit obnoxious, so let's check it out. So otherwise I really like, but I want the tail just to be a bit shorter, so I'll just use a gate. Too short, so let's make it a bit longer. Okay, and then, as I told you, I have a custom-made IR that I recorded Finvox. If you haven't downloaded my Finvox impulses yet, check the link in the description box or click on this annotation here. And with this reverb, the level is not that big, so that's why I used the Kramer tape to saturate it just a bit to make it sound like it was recorded with an analog tape, and then a clipper just to increase the level and just to prevent any overshoots that you might possibly get with snares. On the snare track, let's use Ascend. So this is the room. So it is totally optional if you want to remove this, but if you would have it in a mix, I think it would be wise choice to remove some of that 600 Hz area. Alright, and then for the second, we are using the IR Live full reset settings with just the reverb time, making it a bit shorter, only 1.5 seconds. And then we have a classic clipper to increase the volume, because this actually doesn't have a positive output volume fader. So let's see. And now, as I said, that because this reverb sounds really good, but it's a bit too long to my taste, I made this fade out on the master fader. So I can actually bring up now the reverb on the send. And then I'll just select the whole area. But we can hear that we have this really weird frequency that's, I don't know, odd-ish, maybe. And we can check if it's coming from the reverb. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial how I turned cardboard boxes to sound like a kick and a snare. And if you have any questions, write them down in the comments below. If you are a YouTube user but haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. I make new videos every week. Thank you for watching, and make good music. And what I did on the kick, at first I had a gate. Well, I don't think there's nothing much to explain about that. It's the gate. So it just closes the gate to get rid of all the noise at the end. So then I have an EQ. The difference already is kind of huge, as you can see here. So this is before, and this is after. So we get a lot of smack from this EQ. And then I have a limiter. What the limiter does is it just keeps the peaks from going over. Then I have an SPL Transit Designer that increases the attack and sustain. And then I have a Kramer tape that I used to distort the sound just a bit. So it brings up that character. Then I have a corrective EQ. There is this one frequency that is really nasty, so I took it out, so it's that whistle. And then I cut a bit on this region. But the thing is that I didn't add these in order because I think I added, for example, the limiter first. So basically what they do is that they make subtle changes when they are stacked together. And for example, I know that if I wanted, I could remove some of these from the chain. Last plugin in the chain is the max bass. And you can hear that it really distorts. So let's take the clipper off. And the combination of the max bass and the clipper is what makes it sound really aggressive. But if you don't want that, you can just turn down the clipping action here, because it's clipping quite hard. It's clipping 8 dB. For the snare, so first let's listen how it sounds before. So this is how they sound before, and this is how they sound after. Okay, it sounds like a snare, but it's not as aggressive as the kick. What I did was we had the gate, the same gate, so there's nothing to see there. Then we have an EQ. It's basically just to cut out the low end. This is before, and this is after. So it's really subtle, it just cuts out the low end. Then we have the SPL Transient Designer again. It brings up the sustain and attack a lot. It might sound really awful by itself, but the thing is we have to use these with each other. We get to the Kramer tape where it is having the input level really high, so it is basically distorting. And we are using the snare preset, and listen how it sounds before and after. So it's basically destroying the transient that we created with the SPL. So if we now bypass the SPL, it sounds like a snare. But if we have the SPL on, it sounds like an aggressive hit snare. And then we have the classic clipper again. But because you can hear that there's like a short after sound somewhere, I use the gate to get rid of that. Then I used a reverb. This is more like a room reverb. I recorded the Finvox B Studios main room with the KM184 mics. Let's listen how it sounds, so that we turn down the snare, because we have the send as a pre-fader, just to demonstrate this. This is how the room sounds. As we can hear, it's really quiet. So then what I did was that I added a high pass filter and a low pass filter and a small cut on the EQ. Which doesn't do much, it's just to shape the sound and to make it fit better with the actual snare. And then we are using the Kramer tape in similar fashion as with the snare. We are using the same preset. And same with the classic clipper, same settings as with the snare. And now when we combine it with the actual snare track, we get like a room mic sound, which wasn't there with the close mic sound. Then we have like an effect snare, like your regular SPX Hall. But because I thought that the tail was a bit too long no matter what I did, I made master bus fade out here. Let's play it first with the R Live. It's the full reset sound with the reverb time just turned down just a bit. And let's turn it on. And with the classic clipper, just to bring up the level just a bit. Because this doesn't have like a positive level, so I just use this. Okay, combined without the reverbs and with the reverbs and with the fade out. Alright, so that is how I made cardboard box sound like a kick and a snare. So let's recap. So here it is, how it sounded. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick demonstration. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. I make new videos every week. Thank you for watching and make good music.